Hey everyone, Dr. Dave here. What if you're looking for the wrong kind of knowledge? Did you even know that there are two different types of knowledge? Yep, the Bible talks about two different kinds of knowledge in detail, and one of them has a huge warning with it. Welcome to today's Transformational Bible study on the two different kinds of knowledge. I'm glad you're here. Understanding these two different types of knowledge will change the way you see the culture around you, things like education, and even your own spiritual growth. So stick with me as I explain, and at the end, I'm going to give you the key to the best kind of knowledge. So a man came to me and asked me about spiritual warfare. And every time I started to explain a principle of spiritual warfare, he started comparing that to science and some philosophy that he'd picked up along the way. And he wasn't trying to be antagonistic. He just was trying to figure it out, and it just was not clicking. And as we talked, I had to continually say to him things like, that's not really how it works. So the problem that we were having is that we had two different knowledge bases, and he's trying to use his knowledge base to understand what I'm saying, and they were just clashing. Have you ever struggled to understand spiritual warfare or healing or faith or another spiritual principle like that? All of us have at one point or another. And when this begins to happen, one of the first things that you should do is stop and consider, which knowledge base am I drawing from? The first kind of knowledge, the kind that comes with a warning, is human or worldly knowledge. This type of knowledge is characterized by the following 5 things. Consider these as I explain them just a little bit. The first is this type of knowledge, worldly knowledge, is kind of void of, or it perverts the understanding of God. And so we see this the first time in Genesis chapter 3, where the serpent comes to Eve and he begins to talk to her and challenge what God said. He said, "Did God really say?" And then he goes on a little bit. What he's doing there is he's tempting Eve to find a source of knowledge other than the knowledge of God. And that is a perversion, and that's why this type of knowledge is really dangerous. There is a huge warning here. Be careful. The second characteristic of worldly knowledge is that it makes us proud. It puffs us up. We actually start thinking that we're better than someone who doesn't know what we know or know as much as we know. And you can read about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1 if you're interested. But basically, knowledge puffs up. That's the bad kind of knowledge. Number 3, worldly knowledge lacks true love and compassion. It tends to be absent of those things. It's self-promoting, it's selfish. In many ways, it's just void of love and compassion. And number 4, worldly knowledge promotes sin, evil, and confusion. And if you look around us at what is being promoted culturally, not just in the U.S., but around the world, the result of that is wrong behavior, behavior that hurts other people, goes back to that lack of love, and it really promotes confusion. And man, if there's one thing that characterizes this generation, it's confusion. People are confused about everything. The 5th characteristic is that human knowledge or worldly knowledge opposes or downplays the second type of knowledge. It works to destroy it. It works to push against it. And what it promotes instead is our own worldly intellect, reliance upon facts and human philosophy, and our own reasoning abilities. And that is dangerous. The knowledge of God is the second type or kind of knowledge. Now be careful here, because human knowledge is immediately going to start popping thoughts up in your mind that come against or minimize the importance of what I'm saying. So you may be thinking something like, well, yeah, but that's just spiritual. That doesn't apply to math or science or biology or something like that. That's just not true. That is the worldly knowledge side coming in to minimize what I'm saying. Just think about this for a minute. The knowledge of God is based upon God, the Creator. And if we want to have real knowledge, true knowledge, then we have to go to the source. And the knowledge of God really is just identifying that He is the Creator. And if anybody has knowledge, it's the God who created all of this around us. He knows how it works. If anyone understands things like math and science and biology and relationships, it's the Creator that designed them. Now, remember the warning and the characteristics about human knowledge. Think about those for a minute. Can you see how subtle and how deceptive it is? It's just challenging everything I say about the knowledge of God. And as I explain these 5 characteristics of the knowledge of God, keep an eye on that because it's going to challenge the knowledge of God in your mind. It's going to cause you to consider, to think, maybe even doubt a little bit. Keep an eye on that. That's why there's a warning to it. These 5 things characterize the knowledge of God. First is that the knowledge of God really is the understanding that knowledge belongs to God. He is the source of all knowledge. And while we may be able to figure out a little bit, we may be able to understand bits and pieces, we can't have true knowledge or complete knowledge without going to the source of that knowledge. See, the human knowledge wants to say that we can just pick up bits and pieces and learn and we really are the source. That's not true. God is knowledge. He is the source of knowledge. All knowledge belongs to Him and comes from Him. It's only when we try to separate God from knowledge that distortion happens and it becomes bad or harmful. Second, the knowledge of God is infused with love. Think about 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and read through that passage. You'll see that the knowledge of God really is infused with love. God is love. The things He tells us to do is because He loves us. So the knowledge of God is infused with love. The third characteristic of the knowledge of God is that it builds up and promotes good things, positive things. Just take a minute and think about the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. I think I forgot some of them in there. But if you consider the fruit of the Spirit and how that builds up and promotes good and positive things, then you see that is a characteristic of the knowledge of God. Fourth, the knowledge of God is free and abundant. James tells us for those who lack wisdom, they can ask God and He will give abundantly. See, when we understand that God is the source of knowledge and we can go to Him and ask Him, He will give that knowledge to us in abundance. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to just have a poof download. It means that we still have to study, we still have to learn, we still have to educate ourselves. But when we're pursuing the knowledge of God, then it is free, it is abundant. He gives that to us. He opens our understanding to things in ways that the worldly knowledge just doesn't get. And the fifth characteristic to the knowledge of God is that it is relationally based. And that's a little bit of a hard concept for those of us in the Western world because we live in a Greek-based society. And to have a relationally based or type of knowledge is hard for us to comprehend. So let me just change the way I'm saying it a little bit. The knowledge of God is based on a relationship, meaning that we have to pursue God because He is the source. And as we pursue Him, then our knowledge will naturally increase. So if you're pursuing God and you're asking Him about math or science, then you're more likely to discover true knowledge as opposed to just some fact that somebody came up with. Because the relationship we have with God is critically important. He is the source, and we have to remember that. When we separate God from knowledge, that's when the problem begins. The knowledge begins to be corrupted, it begins to be skewed by sin, and the enemy uses it against us. He uses it to destroy our faith. As promised, the key to obtaining the correct type of knowledge is to pursue the source. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 states, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." The word fear in this verse means awe or reverence. So if you want to have true godly knowledge, the knowledge of God, it's important for you to pursue Jesus because He is the source of knowledge. So take a minute and ask Him about relationships or math. He knows both.